Hello friends, welcome back. In this episode, we depart Big Bend National Park and head north towards New Mexico with some interesting stops along the way.
We've got a military fort, we've got cats, we've got bats, a gorgeous hike, a ginormous cave system. Stick around, we'll show you the highlights.
We'll travel a little over 300 miles in this episode. We left Big Bend National Park a little later than usual as we did a morning hike before getting started.
As Holly was driving us back to civilization, I was playing on my phone and I happened to look for thrift shops in the area. I love going to a good thrift shop, and I found one in the town of Alpine, and it turned out it was not just a thrift shop, it was a thrift shop for the Humane Society, and attached to it was the cat room, so you could go and visit with the cats. So this was a wonderful way to start our journey. We had a great time there, made a donation, and got back on the road with smiles on our faces. I'm sure those three cats are going to find their forever homes anytime. They were wonderful. They were so personable. No, they did not end up in the van with us, but maybe almost. We decided to spend the night at Davis Mountain State Park, and right next to that in town was the Fort Davis National Monument. And Fort Davis was a military outpost from the 1850s to the 1890s, set up to protect travelers during the gold rush, folks headed west. And they'd restored some of the buildings and told a really good story of what life was like there at the fort during those decades. So kind of a unique stop for us. We hadn't really done any national monuments even, but a fun hour or so that we spent there.
We carried on from the National Monument on to the campground. And in the campground, we just got set up and we got stationed, and we hear this, "Craig, is that you?" And it happens to be the people that we camped next to on Rutherford Beach. They're our neighbors again in the state park. So we had a good chat with them, and they gave us a lift up to the top of the lookout of the state park, and we watched the sunset together and had a few beverages together and a good chat. The next day, we got up and headed towards our campsite in Carlsbad. On the way, we kind of took some back roads through the state park, and we actually came across some javelinas that were passing across the road. That was really cool. And then we continued up and we passed the Guadalupe Mountains, which is where El Captain is, crazy scenic views. That was really neat. And we ended the day off by going to Carlsbad Caverns and taking part in a talk by a ranger at the amphitheater. It's also where you see the bats emerge from the cave. It is a little bit early in the season yet. The bats come from South America and Mexico to Carlsbad for the summer season. So we only saw about a dozen bats or so, but it was still really interesting.
We didn't get any shots of that because you aren't allowed to have cameras or even any electronics or anything that emits light there, because the bats are super sensitive to it and they didn't want to spoil the show or affect the bats. But it was still a really good talk from the ranger and a good little night out there. Saturday was our big day. We went back down to Guadalupe Mtns National Park and did a hike there into the Pratt cabin. And Mr. Pratt was a geologist in the petroleum industry and owned a big swath of land here, including where the cabin is. This really nice stone cabin with gorgeous views. I could definitely live here. Really gorgeous hike. And that was built in the early 1900s. And then when he got in his later years, he decided the best way to preserve the cabin and to share his love of that landscape was to donate it to the Park Service. And between that and another purchase of land that they did, they were able to establish this national park. So thank you to Mr. Pratt. We really did enjoy it.
We had afternoon time tickets for Carlsbad Caverns. And so we had already done Mammoth Cave, so it was kind of interesting to compare the two, and they're both very different. Mammoth they take you in kind of different areas of the cave system and you do a section, whereas Carlsbad, it is actually self-guided, so you go on your own and you walk and you walk and you walk. It's a long walk down into the cave system, and then you get into the kind of the big room, they call it, and it's massive and lots of really neat formations and very different and very, very cool. It's hard to capture on photo because it's very dark. They have limited lighting in the caves just to keep it kind of natural and for the bats and other life kind of down there. We did take the elevator back up out of the cave, which is 79 stories. So that was pretty cool and really, really kind of topped off the day.
During our stay in the Carlsbad area, we had noticed the van was starting to pull to one side a bit. The steering wheel had a bit of a vibration, and we took a look at the tires. I didn't know what it might be, but then we noticed a bubble on one of the front tires was starting to form, and we were a bit concerned about it. So we decided to tack on an extra day in Carlsbad. On Sunday, we just did kind of a grocery run. We went and hung out at the beach and did some people watching, caught up on some of our video making and some of our journaling. So the day was kind of a much needed relaxed day, it turned out in the end. Monday morning, we were up bright and early, got to the tire place, Southern Tire, at 8 a.m. sharp. They had us set up with new front tires and back on the road by 8:45.
And that brings us to the end of the episode. Before we end things, let's get to the stats.
We are now at over 7,700 kilometers in total.
And we've done 5 national parks and 1 historic site. In my first national park, I bought the passport book, which is sold at national parks, and there is a cancellation stamp for every national park, historic site, monuments, stuff like that. And so you can see from here, I've got a few stamps from the parks and monuments we've already done.
And final statistic, I've resisted temptations 2 more times this episode. I did not adopt 3 cats to live as van cats with us, good for me. And I did not buy for $8 a 6.5 gallon bag of popcorn, probably the biggest bag I've seen yet. But I could picture the stomachache that would follow, so I held off. And
Next episode is going to be out of this world. We're headed to Roswell, New Mexico, to the UFO Museum, and then on to White Sands National Park.
make sure to beam yourself up for that one. Hit like and subscribe. We'll see you there.
Next episode is going to be out of this world. We're headed to Roswell, New Mexico to check out some UFOs.
That's an exaggeration.